Captain John Miller stared at the strange patterns on his monitor. The signals had first appeared 3 days ago. They were unlike anything Earth's deep space monitoring systems had ever picked up before. "Are we sure this isn't just some new form of cosmic radiation?" he asked, rubbing his tired eyes. Dr. Susan Clark shook her head. "No, John. These patterns repeat too perfectly. Someone is sending these signals. Someone not from Earth." The year was 2072. Humanity had established bases on Mars and mining operations on the Moon. The first manned mission to Jupiter's moons was being planned, but contact with alien life, that hadn't been on anyone's bingo card. Within hours, the North American Space Defense Command Center was buzzing with activity. President Winters had been notified. The United Nations called an emergency session, and Captain Miller's team worked around the clock to decode the strange signals. "We need to respond," Dr. Clark insisted. "Show them we received their message." After consulting with world leaders, Earth sent its first official transmission to the unknown aliens. The message was simple: greetings, peace, and an invitation for dialogue. The response came faster than anyone expected. Just 12 hours later, new signals arrived. This time, Earth's computers translated them almost immediately. "This can't be right," whispered Lieutenant Dan Foster as he read the translation. But it was. The message wasn't friendly. It wasn't an exchange of scientific knowledge or cultural greeting. It was a declaration. "People of Earth, read the message. You are now part of the expanding Zarnian Empire. Your planet has resources we require. Your submission will make this process easier for all involved." For 2 weeks, Earth's leaders debated how to respond. Some wanted to show strength. Others feared provoking a technologically superior civilization. In the end, they sent another peaceful message, requesting a face-to-face meeting. The Zarnians agreed. When the alien ship entered Earth orbit, it wasn't the massive invasion fleet many had feared. It was a single vessel, roughly the size of a naval destroyer. Still, its sleek design and the ease with which it maneuvered made it clear. These visitors were far beyond Earth's technological capabilities. Captain Miller stood beside Dr. Clark as they waited in the hastily prepared meeting room at the International Space Station. 3 other humans joined them: the UN Secretary General, a military general, and a linguist. The airlock hissed open. 3 Zarnians stepped through. They were tall, with blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights. Their 4 eyes, 2 large, 2 small, blinked independently as they surveyed the humans. They wore what appeared to be armor, though it looked more like liquid metal flowing over their bodies. "I am Ambassador Krell," said the tallest Zarnian in perfect English. "I speak for Admiral Vexthor of the glorious Zarnian Empire." Secretary General Patel stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth. We hope to establish peaceful relations between our worlds." The Zarnian made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace is simple. You submit to imperial rule, provide the resources we demand, and we allow your civilization to continue under our guidance. Surely we can negotiate terms that benefit both our peoples," Dr. Clark suggested. Ambassador Krell's 4 eyes all focused on her. "Negotiate? With primitives? Your most advanced vessels cannot even leave your solar system efficiently. Your weapons would be considered toys by our military." Captain Miller felt his face grow hot. "We may surprise you. Humanity has overcome many challenges." The Zarnians all made that strange laughing sound again. "Show us your most advanced ship," Ambassador Krell demanded. Reluctantly, the humans displayed images of Earth's newest space vessel, the EDS Frontier, capable of reaching Mars in just 12 days. The Zarnians' laughter grew louder. "Admiral Vexthor will find this amusing," Ambassador Krell said. "He gives you 1 Earth year to prepare your tribute and pledge your allegiance. When our fleet returns, we expect full compliance." With that, the meeting ended. The Zarnians returned to their ship and departed Earth orbit, leaving behind a planet in turmoil. As Captain Miller watched the alien ship disappear from radar, he turned to Dr. Clark. 1 year, he said quietly. We have 1 year to find a way to defend our home. Dr. Clark nodded grimly. Let's hope it's enough time. News of the Zarnian ultimatum spread across Earth like wildfire. Stock markets crashed. Religious leaders called for prayer. Military forces went on high alert. The 1-year deadline felt impossibly short. In Washington, D.C., world leaders gathered for an emergency summit. The meeting room was tense, filled with angry voices and fearful whispers. We cannot surrender to these aliens, said President Winters, slamming her fist on the table. Earth belongs to humanity. The Russian president nodded in agreement. But our weapons are useless against their technology. You all saw the scans of their ship. Our most powerful missiles would barely scratch its surface. Captain John Miller stood quietly in the corner, watching the debate unfold. Next to him, Dr. Susan Clark studied data from the alien encounter on her tablet. There might be another way, said a quiet voice from the back of the room. All eyes turned to Dr. Alan Wright, a physicist who had been working on experimental propulsion systems at a remote research facility in Colorado. He wasn't supposed to be at this meeting, but Dr. Clark had insisted he attend. My team has been developing something, Dr. Wright continued. It's not ready yet, but with proper funding and resources, it might give us a fighting chance. Dr. Wright's partner, Dr. Olivia Martinez, stepped forward with him. She was known for her brilliant work in theoretical physics, particularly in the field of dark energy. We found a way to harness dark energy, Dr. Martinez explained, not just for propulsion, but potentially as a weapon system. The room erupted with questions. Dark energy was still largely theoretical, a mysterious force causing the universe's expansion to accelerate. The idea that it could be harnessed seemed impossible. Show them, Dr. Wright said to Dr. Martinez. She pulled up a video on the main screen. It showed a small unmanned craft hovering in a test chamber. Suddenly, the craft shot forward at incredible speed, then stopped instantly without any apparent momentum. The next clip showed a focused beam of what looked like black light cutting through a thick metal plate. This is just the beginning, Dr. Martinez said. With proper support, we could build ships that could match or even exceed Zarnian technology. General Patricia Taylor, the highest-ranking military officer in the room, studied the video with narrowed eyes. How many ships could we build in a year? She asked. Dr. Wright hesitated. Maybe 5 or 6 prototypes. They wouldn't all be combat-ready. 1 ship against an alien fleet. Someone scoffed. That's suicide. We don't have a choice, Captain Miller spoke up. The Zarnians are coming back, and they won't accept anything less than our complete surrender. I say we take this chance. President Winters stood up. Her face was grim but determined. Dr. Wright, Dr. Martinez, you have the full resources of the United States at your disposal. Whatever you need, you'll get. One by one, the other world leaders made similar pledges. Within hours, the United Earth Defense Initiative was formed. Its sole purpose, to create a fleet capable of standing against the Zarnian Empire. The next day, Dr. Wright and Dr. Martinez flew to a secret underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. With them came hundreds of the world's best scientists and engineers. Their mission was classified at the highest level. Captain Miller was assigned as military liaison to the project. As he walked through the massive underground hangars with General Taylor, he couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the task ahead. Do you think we can really do this? He asked the general. General Taylor watched as equipment and materials were unloaded from trucks. Teams of scientists were already setting up workstations and laboratories. Humanity has always risen to impossible challenges, she said. When our backs are against the wall, we find a way to survive. She pointed to where Dr. Wright and Dr. Martinez were already deep in discussion with a group of engineers. Those two believe they can build a ship that can fight back. That's good enough for me. Captain Miller nodded. 1 year to design, build, and test ships capable of fighting an alien empire. It seemed impossible. But as he watched the determination on the faces around him, He allowed himself to feel something he hadn't felt since the Zarnians left Earth orbit. Hope. 3 months passed. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the massive underground facility hummed with activity day and night. The project had a name now: Firewall, Earth's last line of defense. Engineer Kevin Phillips wiped sweat from his forehead as he examined the hull design on his screen. The metal alloy they were using was experimental, designed to channel the dark energy that Dr. Wright and Dr. Martinez had discovered. "How's it coming?" asked Dr. Lisa Peterson, the quantum specialist who had joined the team from MIT. "Slowly," Kevin admitted. "We've never built anything like this before." Across the massive hangar, the first prototype ship was taking shape. It wasn't large by military standards, about the size of a small submarine, but its design was unlike anything ever built on Earth. Its smooth, dark hull absorbed light rather than reflected it. The engines at the rear weren't conventional thrusters, but dark energy collectors that looked like black glass discs. Dr. Martinez had named it the Defiant. In another section of the facility, Captain Miller watched as pilots trained on simulators. The new ships would handle unlike any craft they had flown before. Even the best pilots were struggling. "They're getting better," said Dr. Clark, who had been put in charge of crew training. "But the neural interface is still giving them trouble." The neural interface was Dr. Wright's idea. The dark energy propulsion responded too quickly for traditional controls. Pilots needed to link their thoughts directly to the ship's systems. "Show me," Captain Miller said. Dr. Clark led him to a simulator where a pilot was attempting to navigate an asteroid field. The pilot's hands rested on control pads, but his eyes were closed. A thin band around his head connected him to the machine. "He's not using the controls at all," Dr. Clark explained. "Just his thoughts." On the screen, the virtual ship moved jerkily through the asteroids, occasionally scraping against one. Suddenly, the screen flashed red. Simulation failed. The pilot removed the headband, looking frustrated. "It's too sensitive," he complained. "I think about turning a little, and the ship spins out of control." Captain Miller frowned. They had only 9 months left. In the main lab, General Taylor was meeting with Dr. Wright and Dr. Martinez. They stood before a glowing cylinder of swirling dark energy. "Is it stable?" asked the general. Dr. Wright shook his head. "Not entirely. The weapon system puts enormous strain on both the ship and the crew. We're still working on containment." "What happens if containment fails?" General Taylor asked. Dr. Martinez's face was grim. "Total destruction of the ship and everything around it. We're talking about a force that could tear apart the fabric of space-time." General Taylor nodded slowly. "Keep working on it. We need these ships to be safe for our people." By the 6-month mark, the Defiant was complete. 2 more ships were under construction, the Valor and the Guardian. The original plan called for 6 ships, but resources and time were running short. The first live test of the Defiant was scheduled for a clear night with minimal satellite traffic. Captain Frank Rodriguez had volunteered to command the test flight. He was a veteran pilot with experience testing experimental aircraft. "Are you sure about this?" Captain Miller asked him in the ready room. "The neural interface is still glitchy, and the dark energy core isn't fully stable." Captain Rodriguez grinned. "Someone has to do it. Might as well be me." The test flight was conducted in secret, with the Defiant launching from a hidden surface facility in the desert. At first, everything went smoothly. The ship rose silently into the night sky, its dark hull nearly invisible against the stars. Then Captain Rodriguez tested the dark energy drive. The ship disappeared in a flash of purple light, reappearing 3 seconds later 20 miles away. The sudden acceleration knocked Rodriguez unconscious briefly, but the neural interface kept the ship stable. When he landed an hour later, Rodriguez was pale and shaking, but smiling. "It works," he told the waiting scientists. "It really works. This thing moves like nothing I've ever seen." Dr. Wright clapped him on the shoulder. "Good. Now we just need to make sure it can fight." The year was almost up. Earth's deadline loomed like a dark cloud over the planet. Regular people went about their lives with a sense of dread. Many had built shelters. Others spent their savings, thinking money would soon be worthless. In the firewall facility, the mood was tense but focused. 3 ships were ready: the Defiant, the Valor, and the Guardian. Each had been tested in Earth orbit. Each carried the experimental dark energy weapons that Dr. Wright and Dr. Martinez had developed. Captain Miller stood in the command center, watching the large screens that showed Earth's orbital defense grid. Nothing unusual yet. Maybe the Zarnians had forgotten about Earth. Maybe they weren't coming back. Then the alarms sounded. Multiple objects detected entering the solar system, called out the radar officer. Coming in fast from the direction of Ta City. Dr. Clark rushed to Miller's side, her face pale. "That's them, isn't it?" Miller nodded grimly. "Looks like it. How many?" The radar officer's voice shook slightly. "At least 200 vessels. Various sizes. The largest ones are. They're huge, sir. Much bigger than the ship we saw last year." General Taylor entered the command center, already in her full uniform. "Alert all defense forces, and get me President Winters." Within an hour, the Zarnian fleet had reached Earth orbit. They positioned their ships in a perfect formation, surrounding the planet. Their vessels were sleek and predatory, with sharp angles and glowing blue engines. The largest ship, presumably Admiral Vexthor's flagship, was positioned directly over the North Atlantic. "They're broadcasting, ma'am," said the communications officer, "on all frequencies. In English." "Put it through," ordered General Taylor. Admiral Vexthor's face appeared on the main screen. He was similar to Ambassador Krell, but his skin was darker, and he wore ornate armor with glowing symbols. "People of Earth," he said, his 4 eyes blinking independently, "your year of preparation has ended. I trust you have prepared suitable tribute and are ready to pledge allegiance to the Zarnian Empire." President Winters appeared on a secondary screen, broadcasting from the White House bunker. "Admiral Vexthor, Earth rejects your demands. We are a free planet, and will remain so." The Admiral's upper eyes narrowed. "Defiance. From primitives." He made that strange laughing sound that they remembered from the first encounter. "You have no weapons that can harm our fleet. Your surrender is inevitable." "Perhaps you should reconsider," President Winters said. "We have not been idle this past year." As if on cue, the 3 Earth ships rose from their hidden bases. The Defiant, commanded by Captain Rodriguez, led the formation. The Valor followed under Captain Paul Harris, with the Guardian bringing up the rear under Captain Jane Bell. Lieutenant Samantha Cole, weapons specialist aboard the Defiant, studied her screens carefully. "Captain, I'm detecting fluctuations in their shield patterns. There might be a weakness we can exploit." On the main command screen, Admiral Vexthor laughed louder when he saw the Earth vessels. "You built toys to fight us. How amusing. Our smallest scout ship could destroy your entire fleet." "Should we fire, sir?" Lieutenant Cole asked Rodriguez. "Not yet," the captain replied. "Wait for the signal." In the command center, General Taylor conferred with President Winters. The original plan had been to wait for the Zarnians to make the first aggressive move, but it was clear they didn't view Earth's ships as a real threat. That might be an advantage. "Launch fighters." Admiral Vexthor ordered his fleet. "Swat these human insects away. Use minimal weapons power. I want their planet intact for harvesting." A swarm of small Zarnian craft poured from the larger ships. They were fast and maneuverable, darting toward the Earth vessels with obvious confidence. "They're not even powering up their main weapons," Lieutenant Cole reported. "They don't think we're worth it." Captain Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Their mistake." He opened a channel to Earth Command. General Taylor, requesting permission to implement Operation Thunderbolt. General Taylor looked at President Winters, who nodded. "Permission granted, Captain. Show them what Earth can do." Rodriguez turned to his crew. "Battle stations. Prepare to engage." The 3 Earth ships moved into formation. The Defiant took the lead position with the Valor and Guardian flanking it on either side. Against the backdrop of stars, they looked tiny compared to the massive Zarnian fleet. "Neural interfaces active," reported Lieutenant Cole from her weapons station. "Dark energy cores at full power." Captain Rodriguez settled the neural band around his head. The sensation was always strange at first, like his mind was stretching beyond his body. Suddenly, he could feel the Defiant as if it were part of him. Every system, every weapon, every movement was controlled by his thoughts. "Zarnian fighters approaching," said Eric Bennett, the communications officer. 30 seconds to contact. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Miller, Dr. Clark, and General Taylor watched tensely. Dr. Wright and Dr. Martinez stood nearby, their faces showing both pride and fear for their creations. "The neural interfaces are functioning perfectly," Dr. Wright said, studying the data streams. "All 3 captains have full control." The first wave of Zarnian fighters reached the Earth ships. They were small, agile craft that glowed blue around their edges. They fired energy weapons that looked like streaks of lightning. But the Earth ships moved with impossible speed. Captain Rodriguez thought about dodging, and the Defiant responded instantly, twisting away from the energy blasts. The Valor and Guardian did the same, their dark hulls making them difficult to track against the blackness of space. "They're fast," Admiral Vex Thor observed from his flagship. "But speed alone will not save them." He turned to his weapons officer. "Have the fighters form a containment pattern. Box them in." The Zarnian fighters regrouped, surrounding the Earth vessels in a sphere formation. They fired continuously, trying to hit the elusive targets. "Guardian is taking heavy fire," reported Bennett. "Their shields are holding but weakening." Captain Rodriguez opened a channel to the other ships. "Time for Phase 2. Captain Harris, Captain Bell, are you ready?" "Ready," they confirmed. Rodriguez took a deep breath. "Execute maneuver sunburst on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." All 3 Earth ships suddenly accelerated in different directions, their dark energy drives leaving purple trails in space. The Zarnian fighters scrambled to pursue, breaking their formation. "Now," ordered Rodriguez. The Defiant spun around and fired its conventional weapons, high-energy lasers that struck several Zarnian fighters, causing them to explode. "Direct hits," Lieutenant Cole reported excitedly. "Their small craft don't have strong shields." But the victory was short-lived. The Guardian took a direct hit to its engine section. The ship spun out of control, trailing debris. "Guardian is damaged," Bennett reported. "Life support failing. Captain Bell is requesting emergency evacuation." Rodriguez made a quick decision. "Valor, rescue Guardian's crew. We'll cover you." Captain Harris acknowledged, and the Valor moved toward the damaged Guardian. Small escape pods launched from the Guardian, carrying its crew to safety. Admiral Vex Thor watched with mild amusement. "Enough playing. Bring in the cruisers." 3 mid-size Zarnian warships broke from the main fleet and headed toward the Earth vessels. These were much larger than the fighters, with multiple weapon arrays glowing along their hulls. "Sir, we can't win against those cruisers with conventional weapons," Lieutenant Cole warned. Rodriguez nodded grimly. "I know. It's time." He opened a channel to Earth Command, General Taylor, requesting permission to activate primary weapon system. There was a pause. Everyone knew what that meant. The dark energy weapon was powerful but unstable. Using it might destroy the Defiant as well as any Zarnian ships. "Permission granted," General Taylor finally replied. "Good luck, Captain." Rodriguez looked at his crew. "All personnel, secure for high energy discharge. Lieutenant Cole, prepare the dark energy cannon." Cole's fingers flew over her console. Dark energy capacitors charging. Targeting systems locked on lead Zarnian cruiser. In the command center, Dr. Martinez gripped Dr. Wright's hand tightly. "This is it. Either it works or..." Dr. Wright nodded. "Or Earth falls." Back on the Defiant, Rodriguez placed both hands on the neural interface panels. "Fire when ready, Lieutenant." Cole took a deep breath and pressed the firing control. Dark energy weapon. Firing. A beam of pure darkness shot from the Defiant. It didn't look like any weapon anyone had seen before. Not a laser or plasma. It was like a hole in space itself, moving forward with terrible purpose. The beam struck the lead Zarnian cruiser. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the impossible occurred. The cruiser's shields flared bright blue, then purple, then collapsed completely. The dark energy spread across the ship's hull like liquid shadow. The massive vessel shuddered, then broke apart from the inside out. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but the flash was blinding. Where a Zarnian war cruiser had been moments before, there was nothing but scattered debris. On the Defiant's bridge, everyone stared in shock. Did we just do that?" Lieutenant Cole whispered. Captain Rodriguez couldn't believe his eyes. The dark energy weapon had worked far better than anyone had predicted. Status report. "Weapon systems at 60% power," Cole reported, recovering her composure. "Dark energy core is stable but heating up. We can fire again in 30 seconds. In the Earth Command Center, the room erupted in cheers. Scientists hugged each other. Military personnel pounded tables in celebration. "It works," Dr. Martinez shouted, grabbing Dr. Wright by the shoulders. "It actually works." On the main view screen, Admiral Vexthor's face showed shock for the first time. His 4 eyes widened, and he barked orders to his subordinates. "What just happened?" he demanded. "How did a primitive species develop such technology?" "Target that vessel. All weapons." The remaining Zarnian ships turned their attention to the Defiant. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked across space toward the Earth vessel. "Evasive maneuvers," Rodriguez ordered, his mind sending the commands through the neural interface. The Defiant moved with incredible speed, dodging most of the incoming fire, but it couldn't avoid everything. The ship shuddered as hits landed on its hull. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Hull breach on Deck 3, reported Bennett. "Automatic seals engage." In the engine room, Engineer Maria Johnson worked frantically to keep the dark energy core stable. The ship's systems were never designed to handle this level of stress. "Captain, the core temperature is rising too fast," she reported over the comm. "If we fire again, we risk an overload." Rodriguez gritted his teeth. "We need to buy time for the Valor to rescue Guardian's crew. Can you give me one more shot?" Johnson's voice was tense. "Maybe. But after that, we need to power down the core or risk losing the ship." Another hit rocked the Defiant. More warning lights flashed. "Shields down to 30%, Lieutenant Cole reported. "We can't take much more of this." The Valor was moving away from the battle zone, carrying the evacuated crew of the Guardian. But 2 Zarnian cruisers were closing in on it. "We need to draw their fire away from the Valor," Rodriguez decided. He opened a channel. "Captain Harris, get those people to safety. We'll handle the Zarnians." "Roger that," Harris replied. "Good luck, Crank." Rodriguez directed the Defiant toward the heart of the Zarnian fleet, a seemingly suicidal move. The neural interface translated his thoughts into action, and the ship accelerated directly toward Admiral Vexthor's flagship. "What is that human doing?" Vexthor wondered aloud. "All vessels, destroy that ship." The space around the Defiant lit up with enemy fire. Most shots missed as Rodriguez pushed the ship's maneuverability to its limits. Those that hit caused more damage. "Dark energy weapon recharged," Cole reported. "Ready to fire." "Target the nearest dreadnought," Rodriguez ordered. "Fire when ready." Once again, the beam of darkness shot forth from the Defiant. It struck a massive Zarnian warship, causing the same catastrophic shield failure. The effect was even more spectacular this time. The dark energy triggered a chain reaction in the dreadnought's power core. The explosion took out 2 smaller vessels nearby. In the engine room, Alarms blared as Engineer Johnson fought to control the overheating core. "Captain, we need to power down now," she shouted over the comm. "The core is going critical." As Rodriguez gave the order to shut down the weapon, he looked at the tactical display. The Zarnian fleet was in disarray. For the first time, they seemed uncertain, their perfect formation breaking apart. Earth had a chance. Admiral Vexthor could not believe what he was seeing. Two of his finest ships destroyed by a species that barely had space travel a year ago. It was impossible. It defied everything he knew about technological development. "How?" he demanded, slamming his fist on his command console. "How did they develop such a weapon?" His science officer had no answers. "The energy signature is unlike anything in our database, Admiral. It appears to be some form of dark energy manipulation." Vexthor's 4 eyes narrowed. Dark energy technology was theoretical even for the Zarnian Empire. Only their most advanced research teams had begun to explore its potential. Yet somehow, these humans had weaponized it. On the Defiant, Engineer Johnson had managed to stabilize the core by routing power through backup systems. The ship was damaged, but still operational. "Core temperature dropping," she reported to the bridge. "But we can't risk firing the main weapon again. The containment field is too weak." Captain Rodriguez acknowledged her warning. Even without the dark energy weapon, they had accomplished something incredible. 2 Zarnian warships destroyed, and the rest of the fleet was holding position, no longer advancing toward Earth. "Sir," Lieutenant Cole called out, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the destroyed Zarnian ships. The dark energy is still active, spreading to nearby vessels." Rodriguez studied the tactical display. The debris from the destroyed dreadnought was drifting into the Zarnian formation. Where it touched other ships, their shields flickered and failed. "It's creating a chain reaction," he realized. "The dark energy is affecting their shield technology." In the command center on Earth, Dr. Martinez stood up abruptly. "That's it. Their shields must use a form of energy that's vulnerable to dark energy fluctuations. It's like introducing matter to antimatter." Dr. Wright typed rapidly on his console, analyzing the data coming from the Defiant. "She's right. The dark energy is cascading through their fleet. Even without firing again, the effect is spreading." On Admiral Vexthor's flagship, systems began to fail. Lights flickered, and control panels sparked. "Move us away from the debris field," he ordered. "All ships, break formation and retreat to safe distance." But it was too late for many vessels. The dark energy spread like a virus from ship to ship, causing catastrophic shield failures followed by system overloads. Explosions bloomed silently across the Zarnian fleet as vessels lost power and life support. "Admiral," his first officer reported, "we're receiving distress calls from 17 ships. 5 dreadnoughts have gone dark. The energy contamination is spreading faster than we can retreat." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Vexthor felt fear. This was not a battle anymore. It was a disaster. "Prepare my shuttle," he ordered. "We must preserve the command structure." His first officer looked shocked. "You're abandoning the fleet, Admiral." "I am preserving the Empire," Vexthor snapped. "This information must reach the Imperial Council. These humans have discovered a weapon that could threaten our entire civilization." As his shuttle prepared to launch, Vexthor sent one final message to his fleet. "All functional vessels, retreat immediately. Withdraw from this system." That is a direct order. From the Defiant, Captain Rodriguez watched in amazement as the Zarnian fleet began to break apart. Ships were either disabled by the spreading dark energy or attempting to flee. "They're running," Lieutenant Cole said, disbelief in her voice. "They're actually running." Communications Officer Bennett turned from his station. "Sir, we're picking up transmissions between Zarnian ships. They're panicking. Some are already jumping to faster than light travel." Rodriguez opened a channel to Earth. "Command, are you seeing this? The Zarnian fleet is retreating." In the command center, cheers erupted again. General Taylor stood stoically, but a small smile crossed her face. "Well done, Captain," she said. "All 3 ships returned to Earth. Your crews have earned a hero's welcome." As the Defiant turned back toward Earth, Rodriguez looked out at the stars. The Zarnian flagship was already disappearing into the distance, fleeing from the planet they had come to conquer. "Lieutenant Cole," he said quietly, "record everything. The world needs to see what happened here today." Cole nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek. "Yes, sir. Earth just won its first interstellar battle." 1 month after the battle, Earth was still celebrating. The 3 ships, Defiant, Valor, and the repaired Guardian, orbited the planet like watchful protectors. Their dark hulls caught the sunlight as they passed over continents where parades and festivals continued day and night. Captain Rodriguez stood at a podium in front of the United Nations building in New York. Beside him were Captain Harris, Captain Bell, and the crews of all 3 ships. Before them stood the largest crowd ever gathered in the city. "We didn't win this battle alone," Rodriguez said into the microphone. "We won because the best minds on Earth came together. We won because brave men and women were willing to risk everything for our planet." The crowd cheered. Dr. Wright and Dr. Martinez smiled from their seats nearby. Their dark energy technology had saved humanity, and now the world was eager to see what else it could do. In the weeks following the Zarnian retreat, Earth had changed. Countries that had fought for centuries now worked together, united by their shared victory. The United Earth Defense Initiative had transformed from a secret project into a global organization focused on space exploration and planetary defense. General Taylor stood in the new Earth Defense Headquarters, looking at a massive star map. Small blue dots showed the positions of early warning satellites placed throughout the solar system. Any approaching ship would be detected long before it reached Earth. "The new fleet is coming along well," Captain Miller said, joining her at the map. 10 ships already under construction. The dark energy cores are much more stable now. General Taylor nodded. "And the diplomatic missions?" "Preparing to launch next month," Miller replied. "We've detected radio signals from 3 nearby star systems, all non-Zarnian, possible allies." The most surprising development had come just 2 weeks after the battle. A small, unfamiliar ship had entered Earth orbit broadcasting messages of peace in multiple languages. It carried representatives from a civilization called the Nilari, a species that had been under Zarnian rule for centuries. "Your victory has inspired rebellions across the Empire," the Nilari ambassador had told Earth's leaders. "For the first time, the Zarnians appear vulnerable. Many worlds seek alliance with the humans who defeated them." In a laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Martins and Dr. Wright were already working on the next generation of ships. These would be larger, safer, and designed not just for defense, but for exploration. "The dark energy drive can take us to other stars in days instead of years," Dr. Martinez explained to a group of new engineers. "The universe just became much smaller." Dr. Wright pointed to designs on a large screen. "And these ships will carry scientists and diplomats, not just weapons. Earth is ready to join the galactic community." At the United Nations celebration, President Winters presented medals to the crews of all 3 ships. When she reached Lieutenant Cole, she paused. "Your targeting systems made all the difference," the president said. "Earth owes you a special debt of gratitude." Cole smiled modestly. "I just did my job, Madam President. The real heroes are Dr. Wright and Dr. Martinez. They made the impossible possible." As the ceremony ended, Captain Rodriguez looked up at the clear blue sky. Somewhere out there, Admiral Vexthor was likely planning his revenge. The Zarnian Empire had ruled for thousands of years. They wouldn't accept defeat easily. But Earth would be ready next time. On the edge of the solar system, a new space station was being constructed. It would serve as humanity's first line of defense, and as a launching point for expeditions to distant stars. Its name was painted in large letters across its central hub: Humanity's Hope. Captain Rodriguez had already volunteered to command the first mission beyond the solar system. His ship would be a new vessel, larger than the Defiant but with the same revolutionary technology. Where should we go first? General Taylor had asked him during the planning meeting. Rodriguez had smiled. Everywhere, he said simply. The stars are waiting. As Earth celebrated its newfound place in the galaxy, millions of people looked up at the night sky with new eyes. The universe was vast and likely dangerous, but humanity had proven something important. Never underestimate a species fighting for its home. Even the mightiest empire could fall to a single ship if that ship carried the hopes and determination of an entire world.